This is men's boot camp, and so if you're not a man, you need to leave. It's funny because Laura just walked in right there. So I said that. Let's just get some of her stuff. Men's boot camp, and that's the deal. I like the title of that because I believe that we're in a war. I believe that we're in a spiritual war. And the first page that you got in the Join the Battle class schedule scriptures, Ephesians 6 says this: "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, authorities, powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore," since this is the type of battle that we're in, "put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you've done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the saints." There's a lot of stuff there, but there's a slight, if you're paying attention, a slight imagery of war in his thing there. And if you couldn't get past the slight, he's just up front. That's what Paul said. We're in the middle of a spiritual war. Regardless of when we are, when we live, or anything like that, that's a part of what, because Satan is trying to take over. He is trying to destroy God's handiwork and what God wants to happen. And the battle is being waged by us. The reward is souls. It's eternal souls of people. And so this boot camp this summer is for you guys to be challenged to grow spiritually so that we can fight in this battle. And so, yes, I've already had some people say, is there going to be homework and stuff like that? Well, there's going to be work. Because if you've ever been to boot camp, and I have not, but the stories I see about boot camp is they're not nice to you. If you want nice, the ladies' thing is over there. Okay? And so, that's fine, take off, I don't care. If it's me and one of you at the end of this thing, I'm fine with that. Because I don't want to take it easy on you guys because of all the stuff I'm going to be talking about. So that's the schedule there. Those are the three scriptures we're dealing with. The biggest thing, though, is it's in the back. It's in that back. The biggest thing is realizing that we're in a war. It's a spiritual war, and we need to get armed. We need to be ready to battle. Some of you guys, at least some of you I know, are armed physically. You carry weapons on your person, and you do that to protect you or your family or people around you. And I don't have an issue with that. I've been playing with guns since I was in grade school. I think it's a positive thing. Cell phones, on the other hand, I have an issue with. It's on the Bible. I think it's fine. It's a biblical thing to be armed, to be people of protection. Jesus, with his disciples carried two swords for sure. And we know Peter had one of them because he was a fisherman and not a fighter because he chopped a dude's ear off. I don't think he was trying to chop his ear off. I think he was trying to kill him. But he missed. But we know that when Jesus was traveling with his disciples, that at least two swords, because it talks about that in the Bible. So I don't have a problem being armed physically. I think it's a smart thing. I think it's a good thing to protect your family. No issues. But if we're fighting a spiritual war, I believe that the vast majority of men are either unarmed or they're untrained. And you all are supposed to be protecting your families, yourselves, and the people around you spiritually. And so this summer, the goal is to help get you trained spiritually to be able to fight these battles. Because Satan's not done with you. God may not be done with you on this earth, Satan's not done either. He wants to destroy you and those around you. So that's the goal of this thing. And in our society today, I don't know if you pay attention to stuff in society. I do all the time. That's why I troll Facebook and stuff like that. Just because, and honestly, because in my position, people are not very honest with me. It is. You know, when people see me coming, hey, can I talk to you real quick after the service? People's reaction. That's exactly what they do. If they don't do it physically, they do it mentally. I stop doing that to people. I say, hey, can I talk to you real quick after the service? You're not in trouble. I have to throw that in. I just want to ask you a question. That's all it is.
Especially when you ask us to go to your office.
I know. It's like, it's worse than the principal's office.
Right?
Everyone's staff.
Gosh. If you're on staff. I notice stuff in our society. In our society right now, men, you may or may not notice, but we are being bashed in our society. The negative characteristics of men are broadcast. You know, lazy, they're harsh, they're entertainment focused, they're all those things. The positive characteristics of men are de-emphasized. You know, the idea that men are risk takers, that men are protectors, that they're competitive, that they're task oriented. Those things that are positive traits in men are being downgraded and said, you know, those things are awful. I read some stuff. There's a lady named Hannah Rosen that wrote an article called The End of Men. Her basic idea was that due to technological and social advances, men are now obsolete. We don't need them anymore as fathers, husbands, or workers. I'm going to tell you right now, she's either single or divorced. Okay? Vanity Fair. If you've seen the Captain America movie, the Civil War, Captain America Civil War. Vanity Fair did an article on that, and they bashed Captain America in that because of his heterosexual virility. Because he was a tough, strong man. And they're saying, that's awful. TV commercials, young men are portrayed as inept, hopelessly slobs, you know. Fathers are clueless. Sitcoms, I mean, how many smart dads do we have on any sitcom? Seriously, they're idiots. You know, that's the thing. Unless the ones that they are good and smart and stuff get taken off the air. So that's where we are in society. And you hear all this stuff about how awful men are. But listen to some of these stats. I looked up a bunch of this stuff, and it's very interesting because it goes against a whole lot of what our society is pushing. Number one, the population. There are more women in this country than there are men. 50.8% of the population's female. Less than half are male. And so that's always interesting because then, fellas, we're the minority. We're the minority. So I don't know if you've thought about it that way. School these days is not programmed for boys. Okay? The more that they try and make everybody sit in straight rows and be calm and sit still for the time, more and more schools are getting rid of recess because boys are too crazy on recess. They play, they jump, they run, they throw things. Okay? And so you wonder why ADHD has become such a huge issue, because you got a bunch of boys that are active learners that like to move around, and you tell them to sit still in a seat for a few hours a day, for 8 hours a day. High school, the college, 71% of women and 61% of men go to college. 71% of women, 61% of men. Who should we be giving scholarships to? 61% of men. If we want more people to go to college, the men are the ones that are missing out. 36% of women get a bachelor's degree as opposed to 27% of men. You hear about the pay gap at work. And they say that women only make 80% of what men do. It's a really awful stat because on average, men also work 4 hours a week more than women do.
It's not based on jobs.
It's not based on that. It's,
jobs.
yeah, it's not on equal jobs. It's not.
It's all fictitious.
Yeah, it's just made up stuff. Prison. There are 1.6 million people in prison. 90% of them are men. Breast cancer awareness. Finally, the NFL got rid of that. Okay, I'm all for going against breast cancer. I think we absolutely do what we can to cure that and stuff like that. But did you know that only 1 in 8 women get breast cancer? Or 1 in 6 men get prostate cancer? Where was the last thing that you saw promoting prostate cancer, trying to get rid of it on a large scale? I know we don't necessarily want to talk about it, and that's fine, but breasts are much more pleasant to talk about than prostates. But 1 out of 6 men get prostate, 1 out of 8 women get breast cancer. Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women.
That changed over the years.
It's always,
Kind of.
men commit. They may attempt close to equal, but men commit suicide more because we use harsher things.
That's
We
right.
use
Guns.
weapons, guns, and cars.
Yeah.
Drive off a cliff or shoot yourself. And women try it, they're just not as good at it. And so, that's a bad way to look at it, but it's true.
You're kind of harsh.
Kind of harsh. Nice classes over there. Right? So, with those things, with those observations about our society, so much about our society is anti-man, and it's definitely anti-Christian man. I mean, it's definitely that. And so I'm not famous enough to affect the nation. But the men in our church, I have a responsibility for. And so this summer, what I really want to do is build godly, strong men. I want to do the same stuff that Jesus did. And so you all are here. We'll see how long you last. Okay? This is not, just so you know, I'm so mad. We went to Promise Keepers. And Promise Keepers in today was all that. Promise Keepers, the first few times that I went to that was incredible. But now, we went to a men's event here in town after Promise Keepers. It was one of the worst things I've ever been to. Because they got up and they started out with this. They said, well, this place is only about half full. The women are twice as big as we are. And I'm like, well, I paid money, I gave up my time, and I'm here. So why are you bashing me? You're the one promoting this, not me. So I don't know why you're telling me this is awful. And then the second thing, there's multiple things about, but the second thing that really stood out to me was so much of the thing was be a good husband, be a good father. Well, that's fine, and I'm not opposed to those things. I try to be those things, but we have a whole lot of people that were at that event that their kids are way out of their house, or they don't have kids, or they're not to a marriaging age yet, or they're widowed, whatever. There's a whole lot of single guys there, some guys just never married. And I think that being a good, strong Christian man is much bigger than just being a husband or father. So in this thing, I may bring up some family illustrations, but my goal is not to make you a better husband or father. Okay, that's not my goal is to make you a better Christian man. Those other things will take care of themselves if we get to the base root of being a good, strong Christian man. So that's what I want you to know, because that just ticked me off. I was so mad that night. This is not going to be based on false conceptions of masculinity. Okay? False conceptions is you have to be able to throw a ball a certain speed, or go camping, or shoot something. Okay? Now, the majority of men do those things more than women, and that's fine and dandy, but your godly manliness is not based on how fast you can throw a baseball. Instead, we're going to base this on the way that Jesus built godly men. If you remember, he went to those fishermen, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. He's in a boat. He said, follow me, because I'm going to make you fishers of men. I'm going to make you fishers of men. Your vocation, what you've been doing, that's fine, but I got a more important task for you now. That's what it is. That's what we're going to be doing in here. And so, I need to give you the second handout. That's just kind of how the class is going to be set up. Any questions? Any thoughts as we're starting before we get into this part of the lesson?
Men don't ask questions.
Yeah, that's right.
No, men don't. They did surveys. They went to a grade school playground and put a microphone out there, what they found is men and women make the same amount of noise. It's just that girls were using words and guys were using sounds.
Right.
So they would grunt, they would act like machine guns, they would roar. They made the same amount of noise. Women just use words. So,
There's a different pitch.
and there's a slightly different pitch. But I am going to make you use your words in this summer, okay? Just a warning, you're going to have to use words this summer. And you're going to have to do it in front of other people. Because one of the things about, we'll see, however many it takes to communicate the message. Because one of the things about being a man is facing your fears. And so some of you guys have a problem speaking up in front of other people. Good, we're going to put you on the spot, okay? Being courageous doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you go ahead and do it even when you are. I remember when Pam and I were first married, we woke up in the middle of the night and we're like, wow, it's like there's a window open, but we didn't have any windows open. But I could totally hear straight outside, and we were upstairs in our house. And we're like, what's going on? So I go downstairs in the kitchen to look. And our door from our kitchen to our garage was open. And I looked out and our garage door was open.
Mm-hmm.
Who went through the house to make sure no one came in? Who took some weapon with them? I took a tennis racket or something. Turning on lights and looking,
Yeah.
She was upstairs, so she didn't have to see the way, I didn't know if anyone was in the house or not, but I had to go search it, It wasn't because I was just like, hey, this would be fun. There's something that needed to be done, so I step up and do it. That's what we're supposed to do. And so this summer, you're going to have some chances to step up and just say, hey, here's what's going on in my life. And it may scare you to death the first 8 times, but about the 10th one, you'll still be scared and do it anyway. So we're looking at the way that Jesus built his men. Okay, so brief version of Jesus' ministry. I think the problem with reading the stories about Jesus is we've got all these random stories, but very seldom does anyone just go through them chronologically and see what he did. That's what I kind of try to do here. Jesus kind of had 4 stages in his ministry. Number 1 was to come and see. Come and see. So that was kind of like the evangelism. Jesus is out preaching, he's teaching, he's doing some miracles. He's saying, hey, here I am. Come look. See if you want to be a part of this. And so for about 4 months, that's what he did. People just came, they watched, they saw what he was doing. He would answer questions. And for about 4 months, that's what it was. He taught, he invited, he let them see the vision. John 4:35, I didn't memorize this one. John 4:35 says, oh, do you not say 4 months more and then the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Jesus says that in the context of his disciples. Jesus was talking to this lady. His disciples were in town. They came back, and number 1, he's talking to a woman. Number 2 is a Samaritan woman. And they're like, what are you doing? Rabbis don't associate with the lower folk. Jesus said, because they went to get him something to eat, they said, hey, do you want some food? He said, I already ate. And they're like, what are you talking about? Did someone bring you some food? He said, well, my food is to do the will of my Father. And then he says, don't you say 4 months in the harvest. I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They're ripe for the harvest. He's talking about people. He's talking about a spiritual harvest. And here in Phoenix, Arizona, where 80 to 90% of people don't go to church, there's a huge harvest that's available. And it is a whole bunch of people who don't know Jesus Christ. And we, in here, are the influencers for Christ. Either good or bad, you're an influence for Jesus Christ. So Jesus said, here's the vision. We got all these lost people out there. We're going to do something about that. So for 4 months, he did that. Just come and see. Come and check this out. And then, it was probably a couple weeks to a couple months, there's no mention of the disciples. When you look at a chronological study of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, put them all, line them up for 2 to 8 weeks, or yeah, 2 to 8 weeks, there's no mention of the disciples. They probably were with them, watching, and they went back home to their normal routines. Because they're just not mentioned again. They probably just went back and said, okay, it's interesting. Okay, what do I think about that? What does God want me to do with all those things? Because the next thing was to come and follow me. That was a 10-month period of Jesus' ministry. People followed Jesus because they had spent time with him. So these are people that Jesus, hey, Peter, Andrew, James, John, why don't you guys come follow me? And so he got more in depth with some of those people. He had discussions. There are times that Jesus would teach to the big crowd, but then his disciples would have specific conversations. And they would say, you're teaching this story, I didn't get it. I didn't understand. So, what were you meaning? And you see that happening in different places because it was a tighter group. They were given an invitation, come and follow me, and I will make you into something else. I'm going to make you into something better. And he called the people to a dream and not a job. The dream was, I'm here to reach lost people. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I want you to join me in this. And after that 10-month period, there's a time then when the disciples went back home. It's always kind of been taught that the disciples were just with Jesus for 3.5 years, 24/7 for that entire time period. But there's a 10-month time there, and then after that, there was another time of a break. And you remember in Luke chapter 5, it looks like Peter went home, and I think he was kind of on the fence. Because Jesus goes back to him, gets in Peter's boat and starts fishing. Peter starts fishing, or Jesus teaches. And then Peter starts fishing. How does that go? Peter's fishing for a long time. Didn't catch anything. And Jesus says, hey Peter, throw your net again, throw it on the other side of the boat. Catches this big old truckload of fish. And Peter says, get away from me, Lord, because I'm a sinful person. Remember that? I'm a sinful person. Because Peter was okay if Jesus was preaching in his boat, as long as Jesus didn't interfere with his daily life. Yeah, that stuff about God and the Bible and stuff, but none of that stuff translates into how I fish. And Jesus said, really? Watch me. Watch me. And so Peter catches this group of fish. And there's obviously an attitude that Peter is having toward Jesus, because all of a sudden he repents and says, forgive me. I am sorry, man. And that's where Peter says, okay, I'm in. And so Jesus goes from, hey, just come and watch, come follow me, and then he says, come and be with me. And this is kind of the 20-month time. This is where he really gets intense. He's called his 12 disciples, who become 12 apostles. He says, okay, guys, you're going to learn the skills you need to become these fishers of men. If you're a fisherman, and I'm not, I know some basics about fishing. I know that if you go fishing, if you want to catch a certain type of fish, you have to use a certain type of lure. And you have to go to certain places. My father-in-law loves fishing, and he loves fishing for crappie right off the dock. Yeah, they have dumped stuff in the lake and at different places, so they know where they're going to be. So he can just pull in, he and his buddies will pull 40 crappie in a day, I don't care about any of that. But I know that you use certain bait, and there are skills that happen with fishing, depending on what you're trying to catch. Same thing is true if you're trying to be a fisher of men. There are certain skills that you need to get good at. There are certain things that you need to learn. And Jesus did this by demonstrating. They watched him, they lived with him. But then, the big thing he did, he said, all right, you guys have watched long enough. It's time to go. Okay? You two, and you two, and you two, and you two, you two, you two, you two. Okay, you're going to split up. You go this way, you go that way, you go that way. Go, do the stuff. I want you to preach, I want you to teach, I want you to heal people. Come back in, say 3 weeks. And we'll have a meeting about how it's going. Ready to go. Don't take stuff with you. Just go. There's a video of John Wayne, and this kid is fishing, and John Wayne comes up to him and says, "Well, the sun's behind you. You're not going to catch anything. The fish in there, they see your shadow. If you want to catch a fish, you need to go on the other side of the river." And the kid's like, "I don't know how to swim." And John Wayne just gets mad. "You don't know how to swim? How old are you?" He's like, 9. And John grabs him, and throws him in the water, and just sits back and watches. And the kid's, just going crazy. And all of a sudden, Mom comes running out, and she's like, "What are you doing? He doesn't know how to swim." And he's like, "Well, it's about time he learns." So they're having this fight, and the kid's going thrashing. He gets to the other side, and he's like, and John Wayne says, the mom says something like, "Well, he doesn't know how to swim." And John Wayne says, "Well, how do you know he doesn't know how to swim?" She goes, why doesn't he know?" She says, "Because I never taught him, because I don't know how to swim." And so John Wayne turns to her, and she runs off.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the kids celebrate on the other side of the dock. That's the same principle that came from Jesus. Jesus said, "All right, let's stop sitting here and talking about all this stuff. Go do it." Because you all know that you learn so much more by doing something than you do from just listening to something. The more we do it, especially as guys, the more that we're hands-on, the more we're going to learn. And that's what Jesus did with his guys. He gave them authority. He said, "Here's the audience that you're going to." He said, "Here's what you're trying to accomplish. Go and live it out." And I think the disciples probably had some great successes, and they probably had some great failures. And Jesus didn't care, as long as they learned something from whatever it was that they did. And so that was the "come and be with me." And then the last stage was, "You will remain in me." Because Jesus, the whole idea of Jesus' ministry was this: I'm going to be with you for about 3.5 years, then you're on your own. So Jesus, I don't know if you realize this or not, but Jesus taught feeding the 5,000. So there's 5,000 men, plus women, plus children. So you're talking easily 15,000 people in one crowd. That's how many people that were there watching this thing go on. 15,000. When Jesus went back to heaven, he died, rose again, went back to heaven, he was left with 120. After all the stuff he did, rising from the dead, he had 120 followers. That was his plan. You 120 people, you're my plan. It's your job to tell the world. Ready, go. It's like, and they did. And they did. And they started right where they were. They started right where they were and said, "Hey, I know it sounds crazy, but the dude rose from the dead. I saw it." And you look, there's what? 8 billion people in the world. 3 billion are Christians. 3 to 4 claim the name of Christ. And I know that that's a funky stat. Claiming the name of Christ is totally different. But at least 4 billion people have heard the name of Jesus and want to be associated with him in some way. That's a pretty good leadership team he started with. It's a pretty good group of people. And Jesus said to them, "Hey, here's the deal. I'm going to take off, but I'm going to remain." And the last promise he made the disciples, remember in the Great Commission? "Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, and I will be with you." I'll be with you. So the cool,
To the end of the age.
to the end of the age. The cool thing about it is this: God is going to be challenging you this summer. And you're going to be out of your comfort zone, and you're going to struggle with some things. But the cool thing is you don't have to do it on your own. If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, you've got him in you. And so it's his power and his strength. You've got to have the willingness. You've got to have the willingness. Some of the stuff that I'm going to challenge you with is stuff that's you're going to go, "There's just no way I can do it." And if you have the attitude, "There's no way I can do it," you're right. There's no way you can do it. If you have the attitude of, "I don't know how I can do it, but if God wants to work in me and through me to make this happen," all right. If you're willing to dedicate some time, some energy, some resources, everything that you're going to be challenged with is obtainable. It may take some serious work. It may mean that you have to stop watching 2 out of your 7 TV programs. But it's obtainable. It's obtainable. So, that's a brief version of what Jesus did. So on the back of that sheet is what I'm going to challenge you guys with. A weekly report for in here. The problem with spiritual growth is it just sounds so nebulous. It just sounds so like, if I want you to grow spiritually, it's just like, well, I'll just float on a cloud. Okay? Well, there are spiritual disciplines. The point of all these disciplines I'm going to be talking about, the point of them is to direct you to Jesus. That's the goal. Okay? And so these are tools, these are skills that you can get better at. And so we're going to just have you kind of give a report on how you did. Next week is the 21st. And so on that column, the 21st, here's what you can report. Number 1, you attended a watch class. Either you were in here, or we're going to try really hard to record it, so it'll be online. So if you are out of town or something crazy and you just physically can't be here, we're giving you another option. And so if you watch it online, there you go. So you either attended or watched class. Devotion, 7 days a week. If you don't have your own devotional plan, there are 2 places I would highly recommend. Either number 1, the U version. On your phone, the U version of the Bible. It has more daily devotional plans than you can ever accomplish in your life. Okay? There's just too many of them. But some of those are, some of them are good. I would highly recommend Ambition in Your Work. It's one of the things that just ambition in your work. It's by the High Calling Theology of Work Project. A devotional by the High Calling and Theology of Work Project. Ambition in your work. It talks about being a Christian at your workplace, living out your faith there. So I think that's a really cool plan on there. If you don't have access to the YouVersion or anything like that, on Sunday mornings at this church, we give out a daily devotion book. And it goes along with the subject of the sermon. So there's a scripture and just a paragraph. So that gives you something to read scripture-wise, and it even gives you a couple things to pray for. So,
is that the devotionals we do every week? It's small, but is that what that means? Just doing that daily?
Yep. It just means doing that daily. The stuff that we give out. Basically, it's saying, you know what? I have 7,000 things to do today. And in the middle of those 7,000 things to do, I've got to focus on this, this, and this. I need to start my day and just say, okay, God, it's going to be crazy today. So before the craziness hits, I want to take 5 or 10 minutes and make sure you and I are okay. Or maybe at the end of your day, you say, God, this was just nuts. So I just need some time to cool down, settle down, get right with you. Because if I'm not right with you, then I end up not being right with everybody else. So those things take you 5 or 10 minutes. So on here, devotion, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? 1 for every day of the week. Yes, even on Sundays. Because I don't know, God doesn't take a break. Okay? He did at the beginning, but not since then. Alright? So you can do that. Served. I served somewhere this week. Serving, it's kind of hard. If you're doing something in the church, maybe you're serving communion or helping with tech, or you're a greeter or something like that, or maybe you come up during the week and you work on something around the church. Anything that you do in the church, you're cool. If you do something outside of the church and you do it in the name of the church, you do it in the name of Jesus, you do it in the name of God, helping an old lady cross the street because she's there, getting something off the top shelf at the grocery store, doesn't count unless you physically say, you know what, it's just something God would want me to do. If you do something in the name of God, serving, that's what counts. Okay? Either in the church or for the church or in the name of God. So, that you did something this week. You helped somebody else out in the name of God. That you gave. That is finances, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The more I read the Bible, the more finances is there. If you want to be a strong, godly man, part of the area is finances. I'm not apologizing for that, I'm just telling you what it is. Shared my faith. I told someone about my walk with God. Told someone somewhere about my walk with God. Here's what God is doing in my life. Here's a cool way that God has blessed me. I'm going to tell my story about that in just a minute. Remind me, please, Mr. Frazier. Here is a hard one. This is hard, guys. This is going to be hard, but you got 3 months to do it. I'm going to challenge you to memorize these scriptures. From the first page, I'm going to challenge you to memorize these.
You want to memorize the whole thing or just 10 verses 10 through 12?
Yeah.
Huh?
10 through 12 or
Or 10 through 18.
Whatever it says on the sheet.
10 through 12.
10 through 12. 18 was just for my thing. 10 through 12, 4 through 5, and 7 and 8. Okay?
Just so y'all guys know too, if you're doing the other challenge, this all matches that.
Yeah.
Same verses, your devotions count for both, so you can get credit for both things.
Ooh, double
You don't
credit.
get credit.
I didn't
Summer,
say- I
if
said
you're
you,
if you're
not you
participating in
guys.
the summer competition, this stuff, yeah, you get double points. So the goal is to memorize those 3. Here's the deal: in a month, if you spend 5 minutes a day in a month, you can memorize 1 verse, and you have 3 months to do all 3 of them. Will it take time? Yes. If you want, here's tips on memorization. Number 1, find out the scripture, write it out. Write it out once or twice a day and say it out loud. Once you write it out, then say it out loud. Memorize just a little couple pieces at a time. Okay, if I was doing this one, train yourself to be godly. I can handle that. Train yourself to be godly. Okay, there we go. I've got that first part memorized. For physical training is of some value. Physical training is of some value. Train yourself to be godly, for physical training is of some value. If I say that twice out loud and write it twice a day, I'll have that. Okay? And then, I don't know, you're halfway done. Okay? So it's possible, if you need help with these things, come talk to me. You're not in trouble. Okay? Did the disciples ever ask Jesus for help?
Yeah.
Yeah? When they couldn't do something, when they couldn't cast a demon out of it, they're like, Jesus, what's the deal? We tried to cast him out. And Jesus said, well, this one is special. Okay, it's okay. So there's 3 scriptures memorized, and then there are 3, I'm calling them 3 testimonies. Number 1, I want to hear about your faith. What your life was like before Christ, why you made a decision to follow Christ, and what your life is like now. That's your faith. The second one is what you learned in this group this summer. And the third is what you plan to do with what you learned in this group. Because the goal of this group is not that you, at the end of the summer, go, okay, man, I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm ready to go. No. What's your next step? What are you planning to do next? So on these 3 things, you have a choice. You can video yourself. For those that like to take selfies, just do a video selfie. Okay? So you can just talk and say the words out loud. Some of you guys would prefer to write things out. So if you prefer to write things out, just type that up, 1-page paper. 1-page paper on this is my faith, 1 page on what I learned, or 1 page on what you plan to do with it. Okay? So there's 3 things that you can do there. Because they're all practical. Stuff I hate about college. I was taking a practical master's class, and a guy taught us, we learned the book of Matthew. So I spent the semester on the book of Matthew. And at the end of the big assignment, I had to write a 50-page paper on the book of Matthew. You know how many times I've used that 50-page paper since then? 0. 0. If the dude would have said, I want you to write a 13-week Sunday school lesson series on the book of Matthew. Same information, usable format. What I want from you guys, I don't care what you learn in this class, but you need to pay attention and learn something. I don't care what you plan to do with this, as long as it's something. I'm all about the Let's take this stuff and do something with it. You can, and I understand, if you are not someone who likes to write, I don't have a problem with that, but you need to express it in some way. And so videoing, if you want to video yourself on this, totally works, okay? If you can think of another way to present these things beyond those two, I'm all for it. But you got to do it in some fashion. So, next week, I'm going to have you, I'm going to say, okay, attended class. Who's someone that attended class last week? Oh, it was me. Okay, Ray, thanks for attending. What do you remember from last week? Nothing. All right. Devotions. How do we do on devotions? John, how do we do? Tell me something about one of your devotions. So this way if you need to bring your stuff in and have cheat sheets there, I'm fine with cheat sheets, okay? But I'm going to be asking you about some of these things. Where'd you serve this week? What's something that you did? What did you give this week? I know we're not supposed to talk about money, but the nice class is over there. Did anyone memorize anything? And there'll be some weeks where that's not there, and that's fine, because you don't have to get them memorized till the end of the summer. Did anyone write their testimony of their faith? Some people may have done that. Well, don't share the whole thing with me, but tell me something about it. You can't do the last two. You can't do well, you probably could. If we're about halfway through the summer and you said, well, here's what I've learned, and the third one, well, here's what I plan to do with it. That's cool. Let's hear about it. So, that's the weekly reports. Here's the graduation. At the bottom of the report, it says, the attendance is 11 weeks. There are 11 weeks this summer in this. There are levels of graduation. A leader will have been here at least 9 of those weeks. A leader is someone who watched or was here 9 of those weeks. Disciple 7, follower 5, believer, they show up every once in a while. See the differences? A believer is someone who believes, yeah, there's a God. Yeah, Jesus was real. It's about as far as it goes. The demons believe that Jesus is real, so good for you. Okay? First step is just believing. The next step is following and say, you know what? I'm going to follow this guy. Not only do I think he's real, but I want to do the stuff that he did. I want to be with this guy. A disciple is someone there's a level of commitment there and saying, you know what? I'm going to live my life for Christ. And a leader is someone that the standard is held high. Okay? Again, this is one of those things we're not supposed to talk about. Some people have the gift of leadership. It's not an evil thing. Okay? Striving for the gift of leadership is a positive thing. In 1 Timothy 3, it says, those who strive to be an elder in the church desire a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Now, are we all leaders? No. And that's okay. God hasn't gifted us all to be leaders. In a church, a very high percentage of people are gifted to be servants. We just serve in different ways. So, you can see attendance is 11. Devotions, there are 77 devotions over 11 weeks that you can do. So if you do 66 of them, you're at the leadership level. Serving is 11. Giving, there's the giving. 10%, 5%, 3%, or nothing. Yes, to graduate as a disciple, you would have to give 5%. You'd have to be in attendance 7 out of 11, do 55 out of 77 devotions. You have to do all the things to graduate at a certain level. Sharing your faith, you have 11 weeks, one time a week that you can do that. No, if you share your faith with 3 times this week, it doesn't carry over. Next week you start at 0 again. So spread them out, baby. Spread them out.
I'll talk to you next week.
That's right. We'll talk about Jesus next week. I don't want la. If you memorize all 3 scriptures, if you do all 3
We
testimonies,
can get extra credit with God.
extra credit with God, just not with me.
He's no God.
So that's what it is. That's what we're doing. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and share this story now because it's Wednesday night. Because I don't.
Just quickly,
testimony of your faith, what did you say? You said
Sharing your faith.
4,
What was your life before Christ?
life before,
Why did you make a decision to follow Christ?
life decision, okay.
And what's your life been like now? Tell you what, I'll share my story after this. Any questions, any thoughts about any of this stuff? Either the reports or anything about what this class is going to be about? Yes, sir.
Get a diploma at the end?
I'm not going to give you a piece of paper that you're going to hang on a wall and forget about. But there will be rewards.
We could pat him on the back.
I was thinking like a wood plaque or something. you
A
know?
wood plaque that you can hang on the wall and use as kindling.
We could all do this.
You can serve one, we can make.
We can patch you. You can pat yourself on the back. If you're a believer, you get a pat on the back. I like it.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, if your arm works. Any other questions? Beyond the internal spiritual growth, I'll get you something.
Cardinal stick?
No, Cardinal Stickers is only for winning separate competition.
I didn't know what to expect, but I appreciate the time.
All right, Cowboys.
You bet. Yes, sir.
On the devotionals, do we pick any ones we want, like?
Absolutely.
Daily devotionals?
I don't care what you read. as
Daily
long as you
bread,
read.
Max the Kid, any of those things?
Yeah, as long as it's
Or you could
as
use
long as it's
Brian.
not by a woman.
Or you could use Brian.
Devotion?
Brian writes a wonderful devotion every week for you.
As long as it's not Eddie, as long as it's not a woman's devotion, you're good to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Don't do Joyce Meyer or Beth Moore.
Or Marlene?
Exactly. So, any other questions about the class, about the expectations? Expectations is not even a real word in this context, because it's not my expectation. Here's the deal: I'm going to be here teaching. You're going to decide how involved you're going to be. Jesus, do you notice this? Jesus said, "Follow me." Remember, I taught a few weeks ago about the 3 different people that Jesus said. One guy said, "Hey, I'll follow you." He's like, "Hey, I'm homeless. And so if you want to follow me, that's fine, but we're going to be doing a lot of camping outside." And one guy said, "Well, let me first go do this." The other guy, "Well, let me go do this." When they walked away, Jesus didn't say, "Well, I was just kidding. Come on back." He just said, "Hey, here's what it is. You're going to choose to follow me or not." Okay. There's a whole, the 15,000 people that were there for the food, 120 is what was left. He didn't go, before he died, before he went to heaven, he didn't go, "Well, let's get back to 500. He said, "Here's what it is. If you want to be a part of this, great. It will be intense, it will be good, and you will grow spiritually. You have some great stories. And if you don't want to be a part of it, that's fine. That's fine." Do you have something?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, serving Saturday, would that be extra credit or?
Extra credit if you help me move Saturday. Extra credit,
As
baby.
long as you say, "I'm helping you in the name of God."
Yeah, that's right, baby. Helping in the name of
You
God.
say that I'm here.
That's right,
in
baby.
the name of Jesus.
Oh, I will.
I'll tell you what, I don't do. I don't know if I'll go that far. No, man, I really want to do something, but I probably shouldn't. Yes, serving Saturday morning at 7 o'clock at my house in the name of God. Absolutely. And if you, yeah. Yes, sir.
Really all it's about is forming good Christian habits. I mean, we should be doing this stuff anyway, and
Yeah.
this really isn't a lot to ask if it's for, you don't do it, I mean, it looks like a lot, but seriously, we should be doing this minimum anyway, reading devotionals every day to keep it. So, it's about forming a good habit, and once you start doing it, I think we're gonna find it, it's not as hard as we think it is, and it's gonna be actually very, soothing to do this stuff, to know that we're doing this for God, and I think it's awesome. Thank you.
Easy for you with Marlene.
They don't even talk to me hardly at home.
No. All right. All right. Yes.
You know, I just did what, what's your name, Ed? I was saying, you know, I'm here because I want to grow. But realistically, the bigger picture is by building up men, this church survives.
Amen.
And not just the church, obviously, the kingdom survives. And we're in, as you've showed us, the church only has a certain timeline. And, well, I forget the stat, but when a certain amount of men come to church, was it 80-something% of the families follow? And when it's only
You
women-
can't quote those stats because I'm saying them Sunday morning.
Ah. But, you know.
No, but you're exactly right.
If
And
we do not build up as men, the church will fall. And there's
absolutely.
a feeling, you know, of responsibility, not just for myself, but for all of you men, your families, and this church, and this community, more than ever.
I would strongly encourage you to be here Sunday because that's exactly what I'm talking about. The role of men in God's kingdom.
That
And
wasn't in my prelim, I didn't say.
it was in my prelim that I gave to you.
He thinks,
You're
he thinks
I'm
it's his
taking my
idea.
stuff. You're taking my stuff.
Prelim.
Imagine
I'm
that.
sorry.
All right. No, because God has put it, I mean, I believe that men and women are equal under God's sight. Okay, He loves us both. He has put men in a position of leadership. Okay, and the problem in most churches is men have stepped away from that position of leadership. Said, well, we'll let the women do it, and that's why there's a lot of weak churches out there, and that's what it is.